Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Mainspringer channel. I was wanting to talk a little bit about a watch that I have had for over 5 years, and the watch in question is the one that you see. It is the first generation Tudor Pelagos, reference 25500, and this particular watch was introduced in 2012. It's one of those watches that was launched alongside the Black Bay line, which has essentially, for the most part, overshadowed the entire Tudor catalog. But Tudor actually has a variety of watches that are a part of their family, and the Pelagos being probably one of their more exclusive diver-based watches to come out of them. It is also the first titanium diver to come from the Rolex family. They have not made another titanium cased watch, dive watch particularly. It also is, it says the watch is about 42 millimeters, but I think looking at this on the side, you can actually see that the bezel actually protrudes out from the case. So essentially the case is more like a 40 millimeter. It does look a little bigger when it wears, but that is partly because of the overhang from the bezel itself. In addition to that, because this watch is titanium, it is actually pretty lightweight. It's probably actually lighter than a Submariner that Rolex makes, which is what makes this, while it is 42 millimeter, it is extremely comfortable on your wrist. And you can see this watch really serves as my beater watch. I have been wearing this for 5 years on and off on a daily basis. It does get hit quite a bit, but to be entirely honest, this case looks as fresh as it was on day one, and that is insane. That is a beautifully done case. Another thing you might also notice is in certain angles, you actually cannot even see the crystal on this watch. It almost looks like you can just go out and grab the hands. And the reason for that is the anti-reflective coating is really well done on this Tudor Pelagos. It's something Rolex generally does not use these coatings on their own Rolex line, but you know, Tudor has always been this test bed for Rolex where they try out new ideas, new designs, and so on. So here's a watch with a titanium case, a matte bezel bracelet. Instead of having a standard pearl, they actually have a loomed painted pearl instead. So, you know, there's no chance of that pearl essentially falling off over time. The easiest way, and of course the bezel, you can hear the movement of the bezel. It is just very, very sharp and crisp. And also, if you look at this, you can actually see that the indices almost have like a stepped placement inside the dial. So it actually gives this very three-dimensional look to the watch, which is really beautiful. Another thing to note is this is the original Tudor Pelagos. It's easy to distinguish this from the next generation. The first thing is, if you look at the dial, this one has the 2-line text. The newer Pelagos has 5 lines of text. So I personally prefer this model. Yes, this has a ETA movement. It does have a lower power reserve of 38 hours as opposed to the in-house movement 70-hour movement, or 70-hour power reserve new movement. But the nice thing about this watch is it is also a tad bit thinner than the newer version because of that ETA movement. One other thing to point out is you can see by the date, which is reading 4 over here, or the 4th of October, you can actually see a tiny lume to the side of the date window, and essentially looking at it up front straight, what you're noticing is that extra lume plus the date occupies the same amount of space as the lume at the 9 o'clock position, which is a cool touch, and the newer Pelagos actually does not have that lume. So just by looking at a dark lume shot right there, you can tell whether you have the first generation or the second generation Pelagos just by looking at that 3 o'clock lume marker. Another thing that is very unique to this watch is, of course, the clasp. So this is a really comfortable clasp on the wrist, and the reason for that is this particular clasp actually has a very cool extension. So I think, as you can see this, when the wearer has the watch on the wrist, say when you're flexing your hand, it's on a spring-loaded system. Again, this feature is not there in any Rolex watch. It is exclusive to the Tudor Pelagos. No other line in the Rolex or the Tudor family actually has this particular design. It also has, 3 positions that you can adjust it for, like a easy link equivalent, but then you can also put it in this 4th position where it is super easy to adjust. So among dive watches, probably one of the most comfortable bracelets that comes on any watch. Just again, on the side of the 9 o'clock marker, you do have the helium escape valve. This is a 500-meter dive watch. And on the other side, one thing that I always notice is the Tudor logo, the shield logo that they have on the side actually, under normal winding, it actually faces perfectly up, towards the viewer. So it's always the right side up. And they do have a few versions of this watch. There is a left-hand drive watch, which basically has the crown on the 9 o'clock side for people who wear the watch on the right hand. And that particular watch, the Tudor logo always faces south, or, away from the viewer. But I think overall, this watch has been pretty much the cornerstone of my watch collection. Very, very rugged, very, very robust. Again, as I said, I have thrown this in water, I have worn this around. I often land up, I'm a little bit of a clumsy person. I do tend to bang this watch around on doors or doorknobs, and this watch has hardly picked up any scratches or nicks. Now, the one place where the watch is stainless steel is the case back, and as you can see, I have a nice scratch on there. But apart from that, everything, the bracelet, the watch, everything is titanium. So it's got this crazy gray finish to it. And the watch is keeping, it's generally within 4 seconds in terms of accuracy. Now, keep in mind, this is not a chronometer rated movement like the newer models of the Pelagos. So that said, and I have never had this watch service since the time I bought it. So still, it's within 4 seconds, which is not too bad, for a watch that hasn't been serviced and that is not really a chronometer certified movement. But overall, for folks who are considering this watch, generally the alternatives are a Rolex Submariner. I will tell you, this watch is, because of its matte dial and the matte bezel, it is a lot less flashier on the wrist. Some folks may really like the look of the shiny bezel and the shiny dial of the Rolex. I actually have another Rolex watch in my collection, which I will do a review of on, how the ownership experience of that watch has been. But to be entirely honest, I think the lack of NAR coding on the Rolex is such a buzzkill for a watch of that price. And if I were to compare it to the Tudor, I think any day, you know, especially with the newer in-house movement, the chronometer rated, you know, uh, movement that comes in the new in-house Tudor Pelagos, combine that with the bracelet, the matte ceramic dial, I feel this is the more superior watch compared to the Rolex. And, you know, it comes at a lower price than the Rolex. So I personally think that's even better for someone who is considering this watch. So that's really kind of my 5-year, you know, uh, review about this watch. This is my daily beater. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous watch. I love this a lot. Sometimes I'm on the fence. I'm like, oh, maybe I should move this watch and make room for something else in my collection. And I just cannot get myself to, you know, pull the trigger on doing that. I must also mention that I am a bit of a Tudor collector, so I do collect a lot of other Tudor watches. Let me try and do a wrist shot of this particular watch, and let's see what that looks like. I don't know if you can all see this, but there really is, you know, this watch looks extremely good on the wrist. It is a solid piece of metal, just looks gorgeous, especially with the matte ceramic dial. It is probably one of the better looking dive watches out there. Yes, there's a lot of other competition. You know, you can take, you know, watches from the Oris line. You know, there's the Blancpain, Bathyscaphe, or you know, the Omegas are, of course, excellent watches too. But I think if you're looking for Tudor, if you're thinking about the Tudor Pelagos, I, at least, you know, my 2 cents, fantastic watch. You know, if you have the opportunity, pick it up. Uh, I think the only hiccup I would say is the size and the thickness. This is probably not going to fit under a dress cuff. And for some folks, especially with smaller wrists, the 42 millimeter feel is going to maybe look a bit oversized. Unfortunately, like the Black Bay 58, there is no smaller version of the Tudor Pelagos. And honestly, if something like that came up, I'm going to jump at that watch, because I think this watch can do by shaving off a couple of millimeters. Anyway, thanks a lot. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, The Mainspringer. And there's also my Instagram handle, so please check me out on Instagram. And thank you so much for watching.